Good morning. Bitterness and resentment. Why do the two of those go together? And what do you do about it? Like, we're taught not to be bitter, not to be resentful. We're taught to forgive and get over it and, be unified and all those good things. And the truth is, we're bitter and we're resentful. And we got to figure out why and how to get rid of the chasm that is in between all that. Good morning, I'm Ann Ferguson. This is a live walk and talk that I do on weekday mornings. I am an author. I am a spiritual coach, trainer, connector to your relationship with God, and then your relationship with others, your relationship with yourself. I'm a relationship and connections specialist. I'm a thought leader. And I just really, really love healthy communication and healthy relationships. So that's kind of my big push. Today, like I said, we're going to talk about resentments and how they cause this little chasm in relationships. Most of us think, no, I'm not resentful. I've let go. I'm okay. And the reality is there's still that little chasm in your relationship. So we're going to talk about that. But first, before we do that, I want to know, when is the last time you felt resentful? Ooh, I heard once that resentment is reliving over and over the experience that you had. Like the original wound, it's the reliving of it. I just looked it up in the dictionary, and it's the energy of being wronged. So being wronged is one thing, but the resentment is the energy that comes up and up and up after being wronged. I thought that was fascinating. So, when is the last time I was resentful? It's one of those feelings we don't want to go to, we don't want to admit that we feel, so it might be a little bit hard to find the memory. I think resentment comes up for me when I have tried to communicate something that I was wronged in, and then it happens again, and it happens again. And it's like the old thing that I communicated first shows up again, and then I get mad again, and it just goes in this stupid circle, right? That's kind of resentment. So one of the things that I was really thinking of is, I've been resentful in my cleaning and having nobody notice that I did a thing, and then having it looked over. As I was vacuuming my house the other day, I realized something about resentment and bitterness and how it is connected to duty and obligation. Ooh, so much fun to chew this one up. So let's go into bitterness for a minute. Bitterness and resentment are kind of right there together. If you think of bitterness, what do you think of? What is bitterness? So I think of a bitter taste in my mouth. I want to go, ugh. I don't like bitter. So that's kind of in a relationship. It's like, get out of here. It's bitter. I don't want to be around you. I don't want to see you. I am bitter. You don't want to be around me either, because I'm just going to get nasty to you. So the bitterness is the action of just pushing away, and the resentment is the energy of that being wounded, surfacing again and again. We have different styles, different coping styles, right? So some of us throw up a barrier. This is the most common with bitterness and resentment. We throw up this great big wall. Okay, this is why the wall. The wall is there because we are pretending not to be resentful. We are pretending not to be bitter, but by dang it, I'm not going to get wounded by you again. So I'm going to be present physically, but you are not getting near me. You're not getting close to my heart. I'm not sharing any personal anything. I am barrier up, right? The wall's there. Now, I had a question come up in a class that I taught last night, and one of them said, okay, is it okay to dissociate? Because I've been told that I do that and it's wrong. Here was my response. I know this woman and I know a bunch of stuff that's going on in her life. Let's talk about dissociation when you're wounded for a minute. That's kind of that barrier that shows up, the wall, is a dissociation. And what I said was, if you are in an emotionally unsafe place where shame and judgment are being thrown at you, and blaming and things are your responsibility and the other person isn't taking accountability, then what happens is we block all of that naturally. It's called dissociation. We pull back and we go, yeah, I can't take that. It's like, if you're being bombed, it's important to go into a bomb shelter, right? Like if there are planes flying over and they're dropping stuff, I'm going to run and duck. If you're in an emotionally abusive situation, then putting up the bomb shelter to your heart to protect it so that you can figure out what to do and go on, that is a completely normal thing to do. And sometimes actually dissociation can be healthy. To just go, I'm going to be here right now. I don't have my head about me. I'm spinning and I can't think. The only thing I can do is throw up a barrier. So the problem about the bomb shelter comes when it's actually safe, emotionally safe again, and you don't come out of the bomb shelter. Like that's when you're in a good, healthy relationship, but you still put the barriers up to your heart because you've learned that that is the only place of safety. That is when that dissociation and that withdrawal comes into play. That's a problem. If you are in an unhealthy, emotionally unsafe place, then the barrier to someone else might be the right thing. It's the problem. The other problem with this is if you put up a barrier to yourself. You got to be able to go in and know what you're feeling, thinking, believing, so that you can sort through it. And you can do that within the safety of a bomb shelter. You just got to know, hey, I'm not wrong for feeling what I'm feeling and for dissociating and for putting up a barrier right now. This is what I got to do, and this is what I'm feeling about it. So when you learn to honor your own emotions, you start to learn that every single emotion is just a friend trying to tell you something. Trying to let you know that there's a thing you need to be aware of, you need to look at. There's a thing that's not okay. There's a place where you're not safe. Things like that. That's what emotions do for you. So having healthy boundaries comes out of putting up barriers. Because when you become safe, it doesn't mean you drop everything. It means that you go, you know what? What caused me to be unsafe was this. I'm going to draw a line in the sand. And emotionally, I'm not going to let you cross over that line. And I'm not going to cross over that line either. And that way we can keep safe and have healthy boundaries. That's the difference between the two. Okay, let's go into another coping mechanism. And that is surrender. This is really where resentment gets really wonky. I just give up. It's just what is. I can't do anything about it, whatever. As long as you stay in the I can't do anything about it, whatever, you do stay safe in the moment and you keep yourself in the bombing zone. So surrender isn't always the best thing. It might be good in the moment, like, freeze, fight, or flight. If a bear's coming, lay down, play dead. That's what I heard. I don't know if that's true. Play dead. That's that freeze moment. And sometimes that can be healthy, but it's not if you stay there and you just decide it's never going to change. The resentment keeps coming up and nothing's going to change. All I can do is just accept it and deal. Not okay. All right. The next coping mechanism is, I'm going to say, trying to forgive. Because this is where we let it go and we move on. And we just let things happen because you're really, really good at forgiveness. And you can just give people the benefit of the doubt and just let go and all. And the problem with that one is what? That they wound you again and again and again and again because we don't have any boundaries laying out there. Now, I'm not saying that forgiveness is not great, but there's actual forgiveness and there is feigning forgiveness, which is letting go and letting people just do whatever without communicating, without setting up any boundaries, just saying, it's okay, I understand. That is not actually forgiveness. Ooh, yikes, did you know that? going to say it again. Forgiveness is not letting people go and just saying, it's okay, I completely understand why you wounded me. That's fine. I get it. I'm fine. That's not forgiveness. Okay? Give you a new definition of forgiveness. You heard before, it's not about other people, right? That forgiveness is for you. What does that mean? Right? So to me, I've got a new definition that I'm working with, and I'm playing with, and I'm searching the scriptures for. Ready? Forgiveness is the willingness to be healed. What about that? That forgiveness is a willingness to be healed. And so that's between you and Christ. And you know what Christ does too? Is that he's the one who has the ability to say, and for your benefit and your good, it is time for you to exit this relationship. Or it's time for you to have a different perspective about the person that you're seeing so that the resentment doesn't keep happening. See, he can heal resentment. But forgiveness isn't just letting it go. Forgiveness is recognizing that you're wounded. That did not feel good. I don't like what I'm feeling right now. I'm feeling resentful. I'm feeling hurt. I'm feeling betrayed. I'm feeling taken for granted. I'm feeling blamed. To be able to name those emotions and say that's what's happening, and then making the choice, is this what I like? Is this not what I like? That's where the communication and the healing comes. And Christ can take all of the yuckies from away. So those are some of the coping mechanisms that we have. Whew. I know a lot of people who do the, I'm just going to kind of let it go, surrender to fate, and put up a wall, and then wonder why their relationships don't work. Because somebody does something to you that wounds you. First time you can let it go, then they do it again, and then they do it again, and now the energy of that wounding, it's like, why don't they know that this is not okay? It's probably because you haven't told them. By the way, this feels this way. It's probably because you haven't looked at the resentment. You haven't dealt with it. And especially in romantic marital relationships, this is kind of the number one thing. We kind of let people go, but there's all of this resentment that sits in the background. So one of the things that I've recognized is that resentment comes when we are acting out of duty and obligation. That's where we have responsibility. Sometimes people do stuff that wounds us, right? But other times, people just don't recognize and value and validate what we're doing. And so we get resentful that we keep doing things for them and there's no validation. Anybody experience that? Yeah. So let's talk about duty for a minute. Doing things out of duty. This is the shoulds. You do it this way because you should do it this way. That could be a should that you've got, or a condition and a way to behave that somebody else has set up for you. And so duty says, I am going to bite the bullet. I'm going to be uncomfortable. I'm going to pull up my bootstraps. I'm going to do what is necessary. I'm going to suffer through this because duty calls. Okay, you know where duty calls, guys? Duty calls in the military. That is true. That's where you have gear on and it's hot or it's cold and you sleep on nothing and you eat dried out food and you do it out of duty and obligation to the oath that you took to protect a country. That is duty and obligation. Absolutely. Now, is there duty somewhere else? I believe so. I believe that if you have born a human and you have created that, there is a duty to stick around. Stick around, right? Be there for your kids. Keep the humans alive. Don't beat them. Duty says, do the things you don't want to do because you have actually committed to the creation and supporting of life, right? So duty calls at your job. Now, That's an interesting thing. There are systems and ways of operation, right? So when we operate in the way of the system of our employment, we can call it duty. Here's where resentment kicks in. When you're not choosing it. When you don't choose. Obligation is the same way. I am obliged. This is what I should do. This is what's going to make others happy. This is what's going to get me the grade. When we just do it because people said so, and we don't have a voice or a choice, bitterness and resentment, that's where it shows up. So I can choose to fulfill my commitment to keep a human alive. Yep. I can choose to adopt certain responsibilities, and when I do that, I am choosing to follow within those responsibilities and be committed. Your resentment is related to a personal relationship. Okay, so the resentment may be not being seen, heard, or understood. Not having the other person have awareness of how to receive any communication or feedback that you're given. A lot of times when I give feedback, if a person isn't secure in themselves, they are used to jumping into feeling attacked instead of hearing feedback that would be supportive. And so I have to be really careful in those moments. I know I feel attacked, like when somebody just kind of comes at me. Instead of actually asking permission to say, I have got some feedback. This is not criticism. I just want awareness so that we can figure out what to do next, because I really don't like feeling resentful. I'm not blaming, but there's awareness that needs to happen. Are you open to hearing that? And if they are not, say, okay, let me know when you are. And what you do with that is you go, data input, not willing to hear feedback, takes it as criticism. You can try again. Hey, you know that thing? Now you're going to have a panic attack in you possibly, or a lot of vulnerability. It is so scary to go to somebody who you haven't been able to communicate well with, and you go to them and you say, hey, I've got something that I would like to talk about. I'm not blaming. I just want to make you aware and see if we can have a conversation about this. That is so scary, especially if the other person tells you you've made them feel bad. So, like if I give feedback, I've heard before, well, now I just feel bad. Like you've just, made me feel bad. What am I supposed to do with that? You've shamed me. I haven't shamed. I'm just trying to communicate. Anybody? This happens a lot with women. When we'll try to communicate, men take it as an attack and evidence that they are not doing a good job in being Prince Charming to their woman, so they don't listen. And rather than going, oh, I so appreciate the fact that this is scary for you to even bring this up with me. Thank you so much for talking to me. I'm ready to listen. They don't. Okay, why does this happen? This happens because we are taught that if you've done something wrong, what do you got to do to show that you understand? If you've done something wrong, how do you show that you understand you've done something wrong? You feel bad. Oh, I'm so sorry. I feel so bad about that. People don't want to feel like they've done it wrong. Ooh, feedback versus criticism. Such a yummy topic. Feedback. This is what I experienced. This is what I feel. And I just want to communicate that to you. Now, if you've got a wonky relationship, it's going to really be weird. I tend to feel unable to give further feedback when I need to. They feel unsafe to express anything. Oh my gosh, yes. Then you walk in eggshells. All right, I can teach you how to do this. and keep the peace. Like, it is so amazing. Here's the reason why you can't give further feedback, is because we've not been trained to receive feedback without shame. Like, we don't know how to receive somebody's negative experiences. We've been taught that somehow it's our responsibility to fix those negative experiences. That's why you're walking on eggshells. Because tiptoe, 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 if they're okay, I'm okay. That's called a codependent relationship. If they're okay, I'm okay. If they're not okay, I'm not okay. Whoo! That's janky, right? But here's the thing, is that you have to practice expressing your emotion in a way that it's received in a healthy way, that's shame-free and judgment-free. Turns out your person isn't the person to do that with, because they don't know how to do this yet. So to find out how to express, practice it so that you're completely confident in the fact that you have the right to feel this and it's totally okay. And you can just give yourself the validation that they don't need to accept it for it to be real for you, is the first step to gaining healthy relationship. We have to have intimacy with ourselves before we can reach intimacy with anyone else. It's backwards in the world. They say that you've got to be with somebody, and if they love you, you'll feel safe with them. It doesn't happen that way. We actually have relationships that reflect back what's going on with us. So we need to be completely safe about, this happened, that's interesting, and this is what I felt about it. That's interesting too. Do I want to keep feeling that? What choices do I have? Okay, here's the thing. Duty and obligation are eradicated by curiosity and choice. I'm curious as to what their experience is when I share feedback. And is there anything that I can do to secure their safety as I'm expressing? Now, it doesn't mean that they feel safe. It doesn't mean that they feel safe. It's just, are you in a place that you can express it? There is a tool, number one tool, that I keep getting testimonial on, that is the most powerful thing that's happened for them, is being able to express through the emotions jar. But it's not just express. It is also knowing how to receive and stay regulated. Okay, how are you when somebody shares back? Do you shut down? Do you try to fix? Do you freeze and walk on eggshells? Like, even if they're not listening to you, what I just heard you say is that you will share, they will express some kind of resistance back, and then you don't feel safe to share again because you're walking on eggshells. Is that correct? Because that's so typical, so normal. I get that. But, for instance, the other day, I was in my office all day. I was editing these testimony videos. Anyway, I had been there all day. I told my husband, today, this is what I'm doing. 100%. So I got done, tired, burned out, about 6 o'clock at night. And that's actually early for me to come in and sit down, because a lot of times I teach at night. So I came in, I sat down. And I'm like, yay, he's going to be so happy with me because I shut down work early to spend time. And he said to me, so, what do you want for dinner? And immediately I took it on as I failed him. I didn't make dinner for him. I should have made dinner for him. I was doing what is like programmed in our bodies to do. I felt bad that I hadn't made dinner. Now, there had been no agreement about dinner. I had not said, hey, I'm going to stop at this point, expect me to make dinner tonight. We kind of toggle back and forth. There was none of that. And I was just feeling all of this stuff, and I started to try to fawn. I started to try to fix it. And I'm like, well, I mean, what do you want? I mean, here, we can do this, we can do that. And then I noticed, I got some awareness that I'd started to emotionally spin. And I said, hold up, in my own self, wait. And I said, okay, stop. I said, out loud, okay, I am feeling something about this exchange right now. And I didn't care whether or not he was listening. I was talking out loud so he could be aware if he chose to. And I said, I feel, and I stopped and I go, what do I feel? I feel bad. I feel like I've done something wrong because you haven't eaten yet. I feel responsible and like I've let you down. That's what I'm feeling right now. And then I stopped and I said, but yesterday we didn't have a lot of food. I made some macaroni and cheese, but we had sent a lot of leftovers home. So the fridge was relatively bare. So the night before, we didn't have a lot of food. And then this night, here he's like, what do you want to do for dinner? He was trying to be kind. He didn't say, woman, where's my dinner? He was actually trying to do it right and kind by asking me what I wanted for dinner, but it was kind of laced with some other energy. And I said, looks like you're not okay. I said, what do you need right now? And gave it to him instead of me trying to fix it. I just said, what do you need? And what he needed was something that had nothing to do with dinner. It kind of threw me out. And I'm like, wait a minute, what are we talking about right now? Had nothing to do with dinner. And then I was able to say, well, we're at the same place as we were yesterday. I've been working all day. And I'm assuming that you did not go to the store to get any food. And it seems like you've waited too long to get food. And so you're kind of hangry and you need something. So that wasn't blaming, right? That was just sorting through what's actually going on. I didn't take on the blame after that. And he said, you know what? Yeah. I wanted food. I don't want to make food, but I can't even think to go get food. So I'm asking you, what do you want? He says, I think I was making an egg sandwich. He made a sandwich and felt really, really great. Do we have resentment right now about me not making the food? No. Because I refuse to take on the duty of that or the obligation. Now, if we'd had a clear conversation, hey babe, I'm going to be in the office all day long. I'm going to really try to pound it out. It's a good day for me to get this done. And him say, okay, well, what does it look like for dinner? Are you coming out of the office in time to make dinner? Do you want me to pick something up? Or do you need me to go to the store? If that conversation had happened, we would have had some clarity. So, yay for me, doing the clarity thing of I'm going in, and this is what you can expect. And feedback, next time we should probably address what we're going to do for dinner, or he needs to address what are we going to do for dinner, so that we are on the same page and we're communicating, right? Notice, I assumed blame. It doesn't necessarily mean he was sending blame. It felt like there was resentment that I hadn't made any food or taken care of him or neglected him. I felt resentment coming from him. Is that true? I don't know, because I didn't check in. I didn't say, hey, are you resenting the fact right now that I didn't cook? That's pretty vulnerable and raw, isn't it? Because we're not supposed to be resentful. An emotionally mature human would go, you know what? I am feeling resentful that you didn't make me food. But the reality is, I didn't go get any food to make, and I kind of avoided a little bit too long anyway. That would be taking responsibility. So choice and curiosity kill this duty and obligation that leads to the bitterness and resentment. It's like a little chain. I choose to do something like make dinner. It could have been that I'm in the office all day, but I want to connect. I know that he likes to have dinner made for him. I choose to stop and make dinner. That's different than he's expecting me to make dinner and I am obligated. I'm going to be in trouble if I don't. Then I'm resentful of the expectation. So a lot of times resentment comes when we're dealing with somebody else's expectations and we are trying to meet them instead of having clear conversation about agreement and commitment, right? So yes, addressing the needs, not only his needs, but your needs. Here's the big thing. You cannot do that if you're not willing to go, this is what I feel, and it's okay that this is what I feel. And you can't say, this is what I feel, if you don't even know and have emotional vocabulary. Like that feeling that came up in me, I didn't even know what it was. I just was able to go, oh, wait, stop. I am feeling the need to fawn. What is the actual emotion that I am experiencing right now? That is something that we're not taught to do. And luckily, my husband and I have played this emotions jar game enough that when I said, I feel bad, I feel like I've let you down, I feel like I've disappointed you, I wasn't making it, well, now you've made me feel bad. Well, now you feel like you're disappointed in me. That's throwing it all back. I didn't throw it back. I owned it. What do I feel right now? And then we're able to do a thing. I just, this morning at 7, I went to a business that I'm supporting in learning these skills. And they're having a really, really hard time getting the employees to write down their goals for this next quarter, both personal and business goals. What do you want? And the guy who's handling this says, it's like they keep saying, well, what do you want me to want? What do you want my goal to be? And it's so interesting that we're trying to say, no, you get to have your own goals. And we're here to support that, not make you conform into our expectations. Now, the business side of it, the ownership and management may say, one goal that we would love for you to consider is this and this and this needs to be done on a more regular basis. How does that feel? Are you willing to commit to that? Instead of you need to be doing this or else. That's the expectation thing. Getting buy-in. This is what I like to see. How do you feel about that? That's going to be great. But it's interesting that they're not filling out these goal sheets because they don't know what they should be wanting to do. Why is that? Because they've been taught that they should do what others want them to, and that they don't have an emotionally intimate relationship with themselves. It's only 3 months. What would you love to have, be, do, or accomplish in these areas in the next 3 months? What does that look like? Question for you, can you do that? Can you say, in the next 3 months, I would love to do this in the next 3 months? Not wondering if it's okay. What would I love? If you can do that, you can get rid of the thing that causes the resentment. Now, to get rid of resentment completely, you've got to get really, really honest about the experience that caused the resentment. You've got to get into some clarity. There is a step-by-step way to evaluate it when you are not spinning. When you are kind of calm and you can kind of look in at an outside perspective, you can say, okay, this is what happened, this is the results, and this is what I feel. What belief caused me to have these feelings? What belief about me caused these feelings? So let's take the dinner one. The belief was that I was not enough. The belief was that I was not fulfilling my duties. Some kind of unsung societal duty. I believed that I was failing. I was failing the relationship. I also believed that that meant I was in trouble. That also meant that I believed that it was damaging a relationship. So if I believe all those things, I'm going to feel shame and guilt and all of these other things. Going back out of it and going, wait a minute. Is that belief true? When he said, "What do you want for dinner?" I heard him say, "You've disappointed me and you failed me tonight." But is that true? Or is there another belief I need to have? You know? Having the ability to work through that. What I have come to understand is this. There are people who are on the personal growth path, and they are trying, and they're searching, and they're looking, and they're working, and they're doing, right? And what I have found is that the real growth, real progress happens when we are willing to experience an emotionally safe and intimate relationship with God. That's a big deal, because authority figures can be really scary, especially if they blamed you and you disappointed them and they shamed you. We can interpret that authority to how we relate with God, so we stay away from him. We put that barrier up with God. But what happens is, if when you connect and say, "I'm willing to find out who you are, and I'm willing to show you who I am, and get rid of all of the shoulds in the way that I'm supposed to behave with you, and all of the ways that you're supposed to be with me, and just let it all go and go, who are you?" What happens is that you find your own divinity. And when you find your own divinity, you act in a different way with all of your relationships. That the personal growth, in other words, the permission to look at your wounds and own your stuff, happens when you have this connection to God that says, "I give you permission and I love you in any form that you show up, in any of your wonky, your weakness, your resentment, your immaturity, all of that, sweetheart. I am right here and I love you." We must have an emotionally safe, intimate relationship with God. Proving that you're worth God's love does not work. It keeps you with a barrier and a boundary between you and God. He's the one who is safe. Not who everybody told you he is, or whatever divinity is to you. Find out who he is. Find out. Anyway, that is it today on resentment. Choice. Choosing something instead of jumping into the obligation of it. Being curious about, why are you feeling this resentment? What needs to be communicated? Is it safe to communicate? Would you love to communicate? The minute you make a decision about that, the resentment starts to go away, because you're now in charge. Resentment comes when you are acted upon, and the healing comes when you are acting. Not pushing each other away. If you are really, really good at hearing your own emotions, well done. Well done. The next step is providing emotional safety for someone who doesn't know how to express their emotions yet. Right? So that's it. Thanks for being here. Have a super great day. We'll see ya.